Hi guys, thanks for tuning in to another video on ForgottenWeapons.com. I'm Ian. I'm here today at the Rock Island Auction Company, taking a look at some of the guns that are coming up for sale in their September of 2016 premiere auction. We have a very interesting piece of revolver conversion history here today. This is a Danish military revolver, and it's a model of 1865. So, to place this in historical context for those of us here in the US, this was the very end of the US Civil War. The Danish military was already adopting cartridge revolvers. Now, specifically, they adopted a Pinfire revolver. That was kind of the hot technology in Europe at the time. The French were kind of the first to do this. The French Navy adopted a Pinfire revolver in 1858. Well, the Danes weren't far behind. It was primarily their artillery corps that adopted this particular gun. It was an 11mm Pinfire revolver. Kind of pretty much standard technology at that point. It's a solid frame with a loading gate. And then what's interesting is they kept these revolvers for quite some time. Now the rest of the Danish army, for example, the infantry officer corps, adopted some substantially different guns. They skipped the Pinfire, they went straight to centerfire revolvers in the 1880s. And in fact, 9mm guns as well, instead of the larger 11mm. But apparently these worked pretty well for the artillery corps. They kept them around and kept them around and kept them around, and ultimately in 1897 they finally realized, okay, this Pinfire thing's a little bit old at this point, and they updated the guns, converted them to centerfire instead, an 11.45mm centerfire cartridge, and that worked pretty well. And they kept them and kept them and kept them, and ultimately these were not taken out of service until World War II was ending. And at which point they were finally being replaced by Browning high powers. So pretty interesting that these revolvers from literally the 1860s served for almost 100 years in standard Danish military service. Kind of cool. Now there are a number of interesting features to these. They only made about 1,000, well, they made 1,000 of these in the first place. By 1897, when they got around to retrofitting them to centerfire, only 850 were left, so 850 were converted, which makes this a pretty rare piece, especially here in the United States. We don't see many of these. So why don't I bring the camera back? Let's take a closer look at this one. So the Pinfire lineage of this gun is really pretty evident. The most obvious sign are these little holes cut in the side of the cylinder. Those are there for the pins in the Pinfire cartridges. They would stick out. You can see that the frame up on top here and below is cut out so that the pins can clear and cycle all the way around. Obviously that was necessary. Here on the top we have a nice big open cutout because the original hammer would have had a finger that came all the way in and hit the top, kind of coming at a downward angle to hit that pin into the Pinfire cartridge. Now when they converted them, they just cut the top of the hammer off and added a regular centerfire style firing pin to it. Cut a hole here in the back of the breech plate so that now the hammer goes clear through and can hit a centerfire primer. And one of the interesting mechanical features here is this lever. This is your manual safety. It's extremely simple. All it does is physically block the hammer from dropping all the way down. It can't go far enough to hit a primer, so the gun's totally safe. Doesn't stop you from rotating the action, cocking the hammer. You can still load the gun with the safety engaged, because to load the gun you simply bring it back to half cock, which is right there, and then lift up the loading gate. So there's your entryway into the cylinder. There's no latch on this, by the way. Rotate that around to load new cartridges. We have an ejector rod here under the barrel that allows you to come in and eject spent cases. And when you're done doing that, it simply folds up and runs down through the access pin there. An interesting lanyard loop is also present on these guns. That's kind of cool. Normally you'd see that on the butt of the pistol, but the Danes decided to put it there on the top of the backstrap. Interesting choice. Not sure it's necessarily the best one, but certainly is different. Sight picture is not exactly terrible for a gun of this vintage, about what you would expect. Then marking wise, there are a couple things here. First off, we have a pair of unit markings here on the left side of the frame. I don't know exactly what these stand for, the AB might actually be artillery battalion, because these were used primarily by the artillery. TRA, I'm not sure about. You can see that this one has been crossed out, so the gun was reissued from this unit over to this unit, who then put their own marking on it. On the opposite side, you can see that these still retain their original model of 1865 markings. There's a little crown proof mark above that, and the serial number of this pistol was 449. You can see that also on the hammer there and a few other parts. And then the conversion itself was actually a process designed by a guy named Georg Christensen, and it was done by the Kronborg factory, so Gewehrfabrik. I'm going to pronounce that like German, but there it is spelled out on top of the barrel. So the other really interesting thing about these is the actual cartridge that they were designed around. Of course, converting from Pinfire to centerfire, they had to come up with a brand new cartridge to use. And what they came up with was actually a wooden cored nickel-plated bullet. So a relatively light bullet for its caliber. This is, of course, a 45 caliber, 11.5 millimeter pistol. Well, that wood cored bullet, I haven't been able to find all that many details on it, but it would also provide the basis for the ammunition for the Schouboe automatic pistols, which would be submitted to US military trials, as well as several other countries. So I have a full video about the Schouboe automatic pistols, which you can take a look at. But yeah, this really interesting, very light bullet. Give it a wooden core and a metal jacket. I think the idea was to get a higher velocity. They figured that might give them better penetration, which there's an element of truth to that. That would make some sense. Obviously, it wasn't an idea that really caught on, because pretty much nobody else did it. But there you go. One Danish Pinfire revolver converted to centerfire and used for virtually 100 years. Thank you for watching, guys. Hope you enjoyed the video. I get a kick out of finding guns like this that are pretty rare here in the US and have just this really interesting lineage and some interesting mechanical bits to them as well. So, if you happen to be a Dane or have a collection of Danish firearms or would like to start a collection of Danish firearms, well, here's as good a place to start as any. If you take a look at the description text below, you'll find a link to Rock Island's catalog page on this particular pistol, and you can check out their pictures and description and place a bid right there online, or come up to Rock Island to participate in the auction live. Thanks for watching.